and justice for all.
Good evening, everybody. Thank you for coming. We're a little cold. We all got wet coming in, and it's freezing cold in the faculty room, so we'll be going out of here for a while. With that, we only have 2 microphones for whatever reason tonight. I'm going to use my playground voice, so I don't need a microphone, but we're going to play Pass the Mic as we go back and forth. At this time, may I have a motion, please, to open public discussion as soon as I read the announcement. May I have a motion, please? Mrs. Shields? Second. And Mrs. Jericho. During the course of the board meeting, the Rockaway Township Board of Education offers members of the public an opportunity to address issues regarding the operation of the Rockaway Township Public Schools. The board reminds those individuals who take this opportunity to identify themselves by name and address, and to limit their comments to items listed on the agenda and/or items directly related to the operation of the school district. Issues raised by members of the public may or may not be responded to by the board. All comments will be considered and a response will be forthcoming if and when appropriate. The board asks that members of the public be courteous and mindful of the rights of other individuals when speaking. Specifically, comments regarding students and employees of the board are discouraged and will not be responded to by the board. Students and employees have specific legal rights afforded by the laws of New Jersey. The board bears no responsibility, nor will it be liable for any comments made by members of the public. Members of the public should consider their comments in light of the legal rights of those affected or identified in the comments, and be aware that they are legally responsible and liable for their comments. If anybody wishes to address the board, please come up. If not, may I have a motion please to close to the public? So moved. Mrs. Brooks and Mrs. Elmore. Moving on then to communications. Any additional communications?
No, there hasn't been.
Thank you very much. Moving on to approve the minutes, September 18th. May I have a motion, please? So moved. Mrs. Jericho. Second. And Mrs. Shields. Board discussion. Not, may I have a roll call, please?
Mrs. Brooks?
Abstain.
Mrs. Jericho?
Yes.
Mrs. Helbrook?
Yes.
Mrs. Resnick?
Yes.
Mrs. Shields?
Yes.
Mrs. Smith?
Yes.
Mrs. Salmon?
Yes. Motion passes. Moving on to the superintendent's report. Dr. Sammy?
Thank you, and good evening, everyone. Good evening, Rockaway Township. Last week, Principal McGovern and I conducted a walkthrough of the County College of Morris, CCN's campus, with representatives from the Rockaway Township Police Department and their Chief of Security. The purpose of the visit was to determine if CCM would be a suitable reunification site for our district in the event of an emergency. Principal McGovern and I are in agreement CCM is well-resourced to be a good fit as our reunification site, and there is a motion on our board agenda tonight to officially name CCM as our reunification site with a contract for execution. I'm pleased to announce that Scout Haig, our new Class 3 officer, has started. He visited all the schools and will continue to make rounds for the next few weeks. 2 more officers were hired yesterday, both with extensive experience with the prosecutor's office. And we have another applicant that is a very good prospect on tap to be interviewed. We are on track to filling all 5 of our Class 3 officer positions by the end of the year. All of our back-to-school nights have now been conducted, and the turnout at each school was very inspiring. I want to thank the community for their support of our back-to-school night events. The large turnout sends a very positive message about the important partnership that exists between our schools and our families. I'm thrilled to remind the community that I'll be hosting the first of 3 community forums tomorrow evening, October 3rd at 7 p.m. here in the Copeland cafeteria. The theme of this first forum will be determining the state of our schools. A letter went home last week to families and community leaders to invite them to participate in the process. Each forum will have a distinct theme, and everyone is welcome to attend all 3 forums. If you are only able to attend one forum, you are still welcome and encouraged to join us. The second forum will focus on determining, through data analysis, key priorities and resources, and the third forum will focus on determining goal areas for us going forward. The feedback gathered from each of our forums will help shape the creation of goal areas, which will be used as a starting point for the creation of a district-wide strategic plan. I expect to present our Board of Education with a strategic plan by February of 2020, so it may inform our planning process for the 2020-2021 school year and beyond. Lastly, if you haven't yet, please follow us on Twitter at RockTWP_PS and on Facebook at Rockaway Township Public School. It's a great way to keep connected with the daily happenings in our schools as we try to post at least once daily. Thank you. That concludes my report.
Thank you. Any questions for Dr. Tanamian? Mrs. Administrator's report, Mrs. DeCarlo.
Good evening. Cub Scout Pack 160 will be cleaning the grounds at Stony Brook and Copeland this Sunday, October 6th, from 12 to 1 p.m. as part of a community service project. I would like to thank them in advance for their service to the community. We are hoping to appoint an architect of record during this meeting. I will be taking members of the firm around the district to discuss various projects that we plan to do next summer and in the years going forward. One of the first items on our list, as per state mandate, is to update our long-range facilities plan, which is a 5-year look-ahead plan to make sure that our facilities are adequate and in good repair. It also gives us the opportunity to set aside funds to accomplish these projects. I will begin preliminary discussions with Dr. Tanamian and Mr. Higgins concerning next year's budget. At the conclusion of these meetings, we will begin to meet with the administrators and officially open the next budget season. Thank you.
Any questions for Mrs. DeCarlo? I'll make a suggestion perhaps at a future board meeting, if we could invite the Cub Scouts here and present them with a certificate of appreciation. I'd love to do that. Okay. Thank you. Now to Mr. Higgins, curriculum report.
Thank you. Good evening, members of the board, and hello, Rockaway Township. This past week, the grade group facilitators were busy creating grade level benchmarks, a key component in helping families understand the new report cards. Each grade has specific standards that the students will be assessed on and criteria for each level of performance on the standards. These documents will enable parents to see a much clearer picture of where their child is performing in relation to the grade level standards. Once these are complete, they will be shared with the entire community. As part of our efforts to ensure that we identify students in need of academic and behavioral support, the district uses what is called a multi-tiered system of support. The most common type of this is called response to intervention, or RTI. We convene the RTI teams from each of the 5 elementary buildings twice in the month of September to create a uniform set of processes to follow. The group is incredibly dedicated and knowledgeable, and they are excited to use student performance data to help students bridge their academic gaps. The data has been accumulated for the fall assessment period, and the teams at each of the 5 elementary schools have compiled their list of students needing academic intervention. Those letters will be mailed home early next week. We encourage everyone to reach out to either their home buildings or to me directly if there are questions or concerns. In meeting with the various stakeholders over the last few weeks, it has become apparent that there is a need for some time for groups to check in with one another after the beginning of school with so many changes to academics and processes. On October 14th, we will have our first professional day. The day will consist of grade level groups meeting to go through the first round of assessments, the upcoming changes to report cards, the Balanced Literacy Initiative, as well as advanced planning for science and social studies. Dr. Nixon has coordinated with his CSTs to craft a day full of events that fit specific needs within their programs. At Copeland, Lee Rush will be conducting a full day event on the 14th in restorative discipline practices with the entire Copeland faculty. Some of our special area teachers will be traveling out of the district, while others will remain in district articulating across buildings. Beginning today, I will be visiting each of the 5 elementary buildings. Today was DBO, followed by KDM on Thursday, Stony Brook on Friday, Birchwood on Monday, and Dwyer on Tuesday. I'm looking forward to seeing everyone and getting some more perspective on this great community.
Thank you. Questions for Mr. Higgins? Not? Moving on then to committee reports. Mrs. Brooks.
The Operations Committee met on September 19th. We have recommended that we appoint, you'll see in the administration section number 2, the land architecture group. We had a lengthy discussion, we took everyone's feedback. Rachel and her team did an excellent job highlighting
those in the ed committee, if that's possible for you, for that date, or we can communicate via email.
What time would that be?
4:30?
That might be a conflict, because I'm going to be announcing that our, Board of Education's negotiations team with the Bus Driver Association's negotiations is meeting just as our own team at 5 o'clock on the 14th, and there might be some duplication. Let you know about that.
Okay, we'll communicate.
Any other committee reports? The negotiations team is still awaiting the date, with the mediator. We have been able to come up with, agreeable dates for all three parties involved. The Bus Driver Association, the, Board of Education, as well as the mediator. The mediator seems to have the tightest schedule. We're doing our best to try and find a date. Tone would like to wrap this up as soon as possible. So stay tuned for when that date's going to be. With that, recommended for board action. First section is personnel. It begins on page 4. It ends on page 5. By law, this cannot be discussed in public. All discussions took place in executive session. So may I have a motion, please?
So moved. Second.
Okay, Mrs. Smith was second, Mrs. Brooks was the motion. Roll call, please.
Mrs. Brooks?
Yes.
Mrs. Jericho?
Yes.
Mrs. Halvor?
Yes.
Mrs. Mezak?
Yes.
Mrs. Shields?
Yes.
Mrs. Smith?
Yes.
Mrs. Salmi?
Yes, motion passes. Moving on to HIV determination, there are no HIV reports at this time, so there is nothing to vote on. Moving on then to education, beginning on page 5, ending on page 6. May I have a motion, please? So moved. Mrs. Jericho.
Second.
Mrs. Shields. Board discussion? If not, I can open it to the public if anybody has any questions or wants to address the board on education section motions. If not, roll call, please.
Mrs. Brooks?
Yes.
Mrs. Jericho?
Yes.
Mrs. Halvor?
Yes.
Mrs. Mezak?
Yes.
Mrs. Shields?
Yes.
Mrs. Smith?
Yes.
Mrs. Salmi?
Yes, motion passes. Moving on to special education, beginning on page 6, ending on page 7. May I have a motion, please?
So moved. Second.
Mrs. Brooks, Mrs. Shields, and Mrs. Brooks. Board discussion. Now I can open to the public if anybody has a question or wants to address the board on special education motions. Roll call, please.
Mrs. Brooks?
Yes.
Mrs. Jericho?
Yes.
Mrs. Halvor?
Yes.
Mrs. Mezak?
Yes.
Mrs. Shields?
Yes.
Mrs. Smith?
Yes.
Mrs. Salmi?
Yes, motion passes. Moving on to page, administration, letter E, beginning on page 7, ending on page 7. May I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Mrs.
Second.
Smith and Mrs. Halford. Board discussion.
You know where the ping pong table is going?
That was gonna be my question.
I don't know exactly, I do believe, the conversations I have it up on are behind us, sort of up and down this area, yeah.
And following up on that, what precipitated that, donation? Do you know where it came from, or?
I do, it's a 6th grade family, that was just really pleased with the transition, their child's made it 6th grade, they felt they wanted to get something back to the school. Sure.
And this also includes the operations committee recommendation to hire Lamb as our architects on record.
And I just wanted to say that I appreciate very much being asked for feedback regarding the architects on the operations committee. Thank you.
If anybody has any questions from the public, I can open it up to the public.
So could I just ask a question?
Under administration?
Oh, no, sorry.
Okay, under administration. Thank you. I'll get back to you, I promise. Okay, if not, may I have a roll call, please?
On the agenda tonight is a motion to approve the following policies for second read. Policy 4125, employment of support staff members. Policy 5519, dating violence in school. Policy 5610, suspension. Those changes have been made since policy went on for first read.
Thank you. Questions for the policy committee? If these policies are approved tonight, they then become the official policies since they are on the second read. Thank you. Okay, go ahead.
You had at the last meeting asked for the curriculum content standards to be changed to New Jersey student learning standards. Did that happen?
Yes.
So there was a change since the last.
All right.
Thought we kind of did that at the meeting, so I apologize, yes.
Policy 0155 was added at my request. 2 board meetings ago, a motion was made that policy 0155, which had been tabled a while back and talks about board committees, that it come back to the table for discussion. And then that passed, and there was a second motion made that that policy then not be changed at that time, and the existing policy stay in place. Both of those motions passed. I went home and was bothered because I had concerns about the existing policy. But when someone from the board makes a motion and it's seconded, I have a responsibility to allow a board vote. After reading the policy again that evening, as president, I sent it to the attorneys for attorney review because there were things in the policy that I felt were against the law or against code. To that end, we have received a letter back from the attorney that details changes that should be made to the existing policy. Specifically, the existing policy states that board members have the responsibility or have the right to actually conduct investigations. That is not the role of a board member. So we do have a legal opinion now about how that should be worded. Secondly, the existing policy states that more than 3 board members can be in a committee meeting. Well, that's not possible because then that puts it at a quorum, and then it has to be advertised. It's no longer a committee meeting. Attorney agreed with me, actually I agree with the attorney, and it should be reworded that no committee should be more than 3 board members. Thirdly, the existing policy states that the board president must be a member of every board committee. We never really followed that. We were unaware of it really, but once it was brought to our attention, that now necessitates me being a member of every committee. And therefore, some of our committees that are already made up of 3 board members, I had to take 1 board member off of that committee so that I can be the 3rd, and now I will be attending every committee. With all of that, it is my recommendation and at my request that policy 0155 go back to the policy committee for a review, look at what the legal advice is, and come back to the board at our next meeting with a policy that follows code and that is legal. So I want to know how the rest of the board feels because this is my request, but I'm one person. So board, it's time to discuss what you want to do.
I would like to follow up with Strauss Esme, who had provided us with the original stock policy that I am aware other school districts use as well, that include the language conduct studies, to see what their intended usage was for that language, to get some clarification there. I noticed also in other school districts that have New Jersey school boards providing them with policies. There is similar language to that as well, so I would like to know before making any changes regarding that, what we would be preventing ourselves from doing if that is taken out. For example, if it could be the case that the entire board could charge a committee to investigate or conduct a study into something for a specific purpose, I would just not want to prevent the board from having that as an option. So that's something that I would like to do. So I'm not opposed to taking a look at it at the next policy committee, which my understanding was we were going to be continuing discussion of that same policy. It just might take a little bit longer to examine.
When is the next policy committee?
It's coming up this Tuesday, 5 to 6.
Now, do you think you'll be in touch with Strauss as maybe before that and have that information for that meeting, or?
I will defer to Peter.
Yes.
Okay.
We can get to that, council.
May I just need a legal clarification. We have a board attorney, of which you are now present, you're representing, you're a member of that firm, Schulter's Chart, where we hire attorneys for legal advice. If we're not going to listen to the attorneys that we hire, I have a concern about that. So now to bring in Strauss Esme again goes against what our attorneys, who we pay for, are advocating for us. And in Mr. Scarillo's letter to me, he does address your concern and suggests wording that allows exactly what you're asking for. So I'm not sure, and I'm gonna ask for a legal decision here. Does the board have to agree to allow the policy committee to go back to Strauss Esme?
Board have to agree. Well, if you're gonna spend money with Strauss Esme for them to do it, then I'd probably want the board to agree to that. However, does the board have to? Probably. I mean, my sense of the world is you would. I don't know. I would have to look at your contract with Strauss Esme. Typical lawyer looking for a back out from the conversation. But I'd have to see what the nature of your retainer is with Strauss Esme. If it's going to spend more money, would the board have to agree to it? Based on what I know, cursory understanding of your contract, you may be spending money if you bring them in.
Feelings of other board members on that?
If Tony gave us a rewrite first, and it's based upon what is in our best interest, so Strauss Esme essentially gives us boilerplate, policies, right? And we then take them essentially in committee, and we review them, we look over them, there are aspects, right, we take out anything after 8, so it should be K through 8 as opposed to K through 12, those type of simple edits based upon uniquely who we are. So I think, in my opinion, it's safer to go with edits from our attorneys who know us very specifically and can probably look at something much quicker and give us a simpler answer to keep us protected as well.
Yeah, that's the answer to that is a little bit different than the question you asked. The way Strauss Esme or New Jersey School Boards work is they give you sample policies or a boilerplate. And oftentimes, and I know this with Strauss Esme, is they give you choices. So you get to a certain section and you have an opportunity then to decide how you're going to handle it. Usually what Strauss Esme will say is that this has to be reconciled. Just use the most recent thing, which is earned sick leave, right? This has to be reconciled with what your collective bargaining agreement has or what another policy might say. So the way Strauss Esme actually presents the policy to you, it presents it to you literally with an embedded option in it. I can tell you that Strauss Esme is not responsible for ensuring compliance between that document. I'm just using an example, that document and what your collective bargaining agreement might say on any particular topic affecting any particular employee. So they give you suggestions, and then they usually refer you to your attorney to make recommendations to make sure that not only are you compliant with the law, but you're compliant with the other aspects of your particular town, because Strauss Esme represents or provides policy writing services to over 300 districts in the state of New Jersey. They don't know each one, and each one is unique, and each one has a separate collective bargaining agreement. Each one might have a separate or several collective bargaining agreements like you have here, each one might have a separate policy or section of the policy that governs a topic like something affecting employees, right? So I'm just using that as an example, but yes, if I were to answer it, and not that I would, go ahead and tell you, I will tell you that in this, on our recommendation, our blood's on the line in terms of what's legally compliant. When Strauss Esme provides you with a document, they provide you with a boilerplate that they feel is compliant, and then they give you the opportunity to ensure that it is. So in terms of balancing it, I guess if I screw up, then there's going to be a real problem. Strauss Esme gets outs because they give you options throughout their sample policies.
Without stepping on, the attorney's toes or anything, I just thought that it might be helpful to help us move forward if the intent of why school boards includes that same recommendation in their policies, and Strauss Esme might just help us to move forward. So if it's for free, that would be fantastic, which is what I'm hoping for, because I believe in the past when we've just asked the question, we've just reached out, we just wanted a quick answer. Thank you.
Anyone else?
Yes, I just want to add, the intention of removing it and going through that whole process the last time was to have more time to look at this, because we did want to look into it forward, in a more comprehensive way, because we knew that there were pieces that needed to be fixed. Definitely the wording. I know we had talked about it publicly, and when we had our audit, we knew we needed to put this to the side to get it done and get it done correctly. So I would like to see it done correctly, obviously. And the next step was to go and ask for legal advice with it.
And we got it.
Well, you beat me to it.
This policy has been being talked about since the springtime. I know it was the intention I filled in for Mrs. Hubberg as the alternate at the policy meeting, and that was back in April or May. So we're going, like almost 6 months later, and we're still dealing with it. It was very frustrating and not communicated well last week that I thought there was going to be no more discussion on this policy, and the policy commission is not looking at it. So that to me was very frustrating. And knowing that something is wrong and not doing anything about it is a problem.
I understand that. The idea that we were bringing it back. Several times it was with the transition, with administration, where things were, and getting on the same page and moving forward, with a list of things that we needed to attack. This was on that list of things that needed to be attacked. Like I spoke about earlier, I have an Excel sheet of what we work on, what's still live, what we need to talk about, and where we need to get more information, and this was definitely on that list. I'm sorry if it was incomplete, but that was our intention.
Any other comments from the board?
I just have a question, and I'll refer to the attorney because the committee's made up, but are we allowed to split potentially policy? We've talked about it 100 times, it's a behemoth tax, it's a full-time job in itself. And for, a lot of people, it's a lot, and to have to meet 2 or 3 times a month to get through stuff is a lot of time to put in. Is there a way to maybe break up a policy committee and say, alerts, right, so we get alerts, and then we also have maintenance, if you want to call it that, talking about maintenance, like today's put the third list, those types of things. Is that something that's potentially legal to do? Is it common? Is it, I don't know, just a thought, trying to help out.
This is my second meeting in Rockaway Township, and I can tell you that I applaud you because the Board of Education's got really 2 charges, right? Set policy, hire a superintendent, and to be the fiduciary trustee to the community. You obviously take your responsibilities very seriously, so that's great. You're a 7-member board, so if you were to establish and policy is a standing committee. If you were to establish a separate committee, you certainly can do so. The problem that you run into with a 7-member board is that when you exceed 4 members to a committee, you end up needing to publish and have an open public meeting. Now you have open public meeting type issues, so every one of your policy committee meetings becomes an open public meeting. Could you have somebody sit as a say the chair, sit on the standing committee, and then also liaise with maybe an ad hoc committee, which your policy actually allows for. You can do that. Just be mindful of the Open Public Meetings Act. You can't have more than three members rather, on an ad hoc committee. That might be something you want to consider as you consider, you know, the auditing of your policies, the updates that come out all the time. The law changes, you know, really often. So, you know, it's something to think about. You can do it. You're empowered to do it by your policy. But when you have, you know, now you're going to be dealing with probably a total of 5 people who will be working on a policy. The only way you can break that up and avoid violating the Open Public Meetings Act is to establish an ad hoc committee and then meet that way. Otherwise, you can review policy as a committee of the whole, which is fine. It's, you know, I have clients who do certain policies and budgets as a committee of the whole. That's an example of a committee that meets as a whole. But what you're doing is signing up for more public meetings, which is great.
I think that she was, maybe I'm misunderstanding, but from my understanding is she's saying a separate group that would work on a specific task, not together.
And what I'm saying is I wouldn't do it. What I would do is I would have a person from the standing committee liaison to the ad hoc committee. That's the way I would do it. Yes, they have to be separate. And you're sharing the workload instead of, but I wouldn't have 3 and 3. I would probably have somebody who goes between the 2. That would be what I would do, because then, you know, you're working on an update on a committee that you need to on a policy that you need to maintain. And I'll just use HIB as an example. The HIB laws change all the time, okay? So you have a HIB policy, now you have an update on it, but then you realize that at some point down the road, because it's about a 7 or 8 page policy, that you need to correct something that's existing in your policy already, but then you get an update. So now you have 2 different sets of people doing the same thing. It's about communication and making sure that you can work effectively, because you're all volunteers, so you're signing up for additional meetings. It's a suggestion. You could have 3 people sit on the standing committee and 3 separate people sit on an ad hoc. You certainly can do that. Does that answer your issue?
Yeah, I think that's the intent.
If you'd like, since this was just brought up tonight, if you wanted to let this marinate and then come back in 2 weeks and let's pursue it to see which direction you want to go in terms of maybe sharing the workload. What about that? I think so we'll put that on the agenda then for our discussion 2 weeks from now. Thank you so much.
Okay, are we gonna see this policy on the 16th for the first read? Is that what we're getting at?
Right, I had asked that it go back to the policy committee and come back for a first reading on the 16th. With that, while it's still under policy, because of the policy that exists now, I had to reassign some of the committee members because we have too many people on a committee now that I have to be in every committee. Therefore, these are the new committees of the board, and I will have them posted on the website as soon as I can. The education committee, I was already a member of that committee, but we had to make changes for other reasons. So I am still a member of that committee. Nancy Hellborg is the chair of that committee. Nancy Cherico is a member of that committee. And Rachel Brooks is an alternate to that committee. The operations committee, Rachel Brooks is the chair of that committee. Tanya is a member of that committee. I am the 3rd member of that committee. Nancy Hellborg will be the alternate for that committee. Policy committee. Larissa Smith will be chair of that committee. Lisa Mezek is a member of that committee. And I am the 3rd member of that committee. And Nancy Cherico will be the alternate to that committee. Negotiations remains the same because I'm already on that committee. And so Tanya and Nancy would be members of that committee. So that is the lineup, and I will get that to you, Mrs. DeCarlo, by tomorrow so you can have it posted. Thank you very much. to a board vote. I can open it to the public if anyone has any questions about policy. If not, may I have a roll call, please?
Mrs. Brooks?
Yes.
Mrs. Jericho?
Yes.
Mrs. Hobart?
Yes.
Mrs. Mezak?
Yes.
Mrs. Shields?
Yes.
Mrs. Smith?
Yes.
Mrs. Sami?
Yes, motion passes. Moving on now to old business. Is there any old business?
I do have some old business, regarding policy, and I would like to thank Dr. Snanigan for working on the regulations that needed to be done that I had mentioned at the last meeting, and for, incorporating some of my comments, one especially on disruptive pupils, making it a K-5 and 6 through 8 sections. I appreciated that. And I just have one question, and that was under school security on the regulation, 7440, and it talks about, when the school office is closed, there must be a school log maintained outside the school office. I was wondering if that's something that is done or something that is needed, so it was just some follow-up on that.
Thank you. No, it's not a current practice, so it's something that we need to go back and do another edit on.
Okay.
Okay? There's language in there about the school day that is followed through very consistently across our schools. So I'll just have to tease that language out.
Appreciate that.
Sure.
Any other old business? If not, new business? Howard? Mike?
I attended on the 21st of September. September's a little blurry for me, I'm sorry. A county association meeting in Trenton, New Jersey, and one of the presentations that took place was a social emotional learning presentation. I had shared that with the board. That was presented to us. This is, they were also talked about the release of the mental health task force, building a foundation of hope, which was just released today. It was supposed to be released last week, but it was released today from New Jersey school boards. And it's a very extensive report. I only got through the first couple of pages of it because I didn't have time today, but I wanted to just bring some attention to some of the things that were talked about in that report and that were overlapping in the actual presentation. They talked about why emotionally healthy schools are important. Obviously, there's emotionally healthy schools make the good things happen, bring up the good things and decrease the bad things with our youngsters. And one of the topics that they talked about was creating these environments that help our children adjust to the world around us and their stresses and just ways of dealing with life. It's a very different world than 20 years ago, and our kids need different skill sets. And one of the things that they talked about in the actual presentation was also taking care of the staff that takes care of the children, because children model what they see. So if teachers are stressed, if they see that they are, not doing well, children tend to pick up on those emotions. So that was one of the main points from the actual presentation. But I wanted to highlight some of the things that we're already doing here in our school district that was part of this report when they make recommendations. We've done quite a bit in the past few years regarding social emotional learning, and I just want to highlight some of the things that we do here that were very good. We have our morning meetings, we have our mindfulness, the Sandy Hook Promise that was talked about the past few board meetings, where we're talking about the whole child approach. Along with the Sandy Hook Promise is Start with Hello, which is part of it, it's another component to it. Bringing in the school resource officers, working with the foundation, with the therapy dogs that come in, and the reading with the books to the dogs. And we have several schools that had really high marks with schools of character this past year, all leading towards a positive culture. We have adopted LEAD this past year. We've been working for over 20 years with the Substance Abuse Association, and they've been a phenomenal resource, and we're utilizing them well with our 8th graders. And also we've adopted Rutgers Behavioral Health last year, and then we continued and we've expanded. So these are all part of what the state is looking at now. I looked at the New Jersey State Board of Education website, and I happened to look for regarding park scores and how they're changing things. This from another meeting, and I came across the minutes for them because I just have nothing else to do but read board minutes, you know, because that's what I do in my spare time. And they talked about looking at next year to having a social emotional learning community at the state level, as well as they're talking about the career and technical education for the non-college bound learner. So all of these things are, and those also echo what New Jersey School Boards is also focusing on with their task force in the more recent months. So these are things that are coming down from the state, and then School Boards is on top of this and really pushing these ideas with different trainings. But I wanted to really talk about what we've already been doing, and we're doing a lot of good things and headed in a good direction. And I would love to, can't wait to see more of what's happening.
Thank you. Some of what you shared was PowerPoint, and there were 2 slides on it. Is this familiar?
Yes.
Okay. So one was often seeing challenges to why social emotional
Yes.
learning doesn't happen in schools. And I went through there, and we have addressed all of these areas, as you just said. As you want to add.
No, go ahead now.
Okay. And then how to set up your district so it succeeds. We were right there as well. So-
Exactly. It was very nice. I was smiling through the whole presentation, and I was reading things. But one of the other, I forgot to mention this. Our mission statement addresses this directly, to nurture a supportive culture, embracing individual diversity that will ensure academic, social, and emotional success for all. So we're really speaking to it, and I think that it just needed to be highlighted. It was talked about at the county association meeting, where they're trying to now roll it out, you know, to the county meetings, and you know, we're doing some good things. So, thank you.
Thank you for sharing. Any other new business? If not, if there's anyone from the public who wishes to address the board on anything, now's the time. If there's someone, I can open it up to the public. May I have a motion, please? So moved. Mrs. Brooks, a second. Second. Okay, Mrs. Shields, and yes, we have to come on, please. I really not good at that. And you have to sign in, please. Do we have to put it in the minutes? Thank you. Right there.
Hey, my name is Tina Richardson, and can you bring up this on? 49 Terrace, New Jersey. As most of you know, I'm a school bus driver here in town, president of our association. And I just wanted to bring it to the attention that we would like to get this settled as fast as you guys. I listened to the minutes from, or the meeting from the last time, and understood the frustration that we were given 11 dates to meet. Just so you know, we were only given 3 weeks. So I don't know where the mix-up is, but actually John from NJEA was given 3 dates. He couldn't make one because it's NJEA convention. I don't know what the other one was, 11/13, he couldn't do. So as I'm told, it looks like it's all the way to December 3rd. We don't want to wait that long. We'd like to see if there's anything that can be done to get it done sooner. So I don't know, you're as frustrated as we are with being told there was 11 dates. We were only given 3. So I don't know where that went.
The 11 dates was an internal amongst
Okay.
ourselves coming up with. And as far as the 3 dates, I feel like we are now at the point, and once again, I'm frustrated.
Right.
We are
So are we.
we are saying yes to date every day. We have not turned down one date that has been offered, and we are seeing it on the other.
Right. I don't know who or what. Like I said, as far as it goes,
The last
I
two-
personally
the
was
last-
given 3 dates.
The last 2 dates were turned down by.
Well, one was NJEA convention. Of course they can't. NJEA can't be there with us. They're in the convention in Atlantic City. Unless we all go there.
School boards convention?
The school board,
No, probably teachers convention.
NJTA teachers
Oh, that,
convention.
okay.
That was the date. So if we all wanna go to Atlantic City and settle, let's go. But, you know,
So Tina, Dennis is here representing the firm. Please take the message back to Mr. Cirillo.
100%.
And, we have made it clear also, we share your frustration. We're getting partial dates here and there, and as Mrs. Jericho said, we've never said no. We keep saying yes, and
we
then all
don't
of a sudden
get
it's
them,
not
it
there.
goes through John. So, and of
Right.
course, we can't do it without that. So,
John Williams.
John Williams. And so when I heard that you guys were frustrated, believe me, I'm just as frustrated, and so are the drivers who are here. Because we want to get settled as soon as we can too. My understanding is the calendar proposal went back to Tony on September 5th. And as of yesterday, John was still waiting to hear back from him. So, I'm just saying, so it's just as frustrating for you as it is for us. I mean, I want you to know, we are just as frustrated, because it's a waiting game for us too.